the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis. This was a pretty interesting book, I thought. Um, I like the it wasn't too bad for being a sci-fi book by C.S. Lewis, who's more of a philosophical, religious kind of guy than a sci-fi novel or sci-fi author. One of my favorite parts of this book was definitely chapter 16, pages 101 to 103, when Ransom meets the Augury students. Basically, he gets their the cave excavation sites, system of excavations that he calls it, large, many-chambered, containing a multitude of things that he did not understand, as he says. There are even rolls that were books in there. Something I thought interesting, since there hasn't been a mention of actually seeing books in this, because the Rasa don't have them anymore, because Oyarsa doesn't think they need them. Right there, I thought that was interesting, as he says Oyarsa always remembers them and would bring them to light if he thought fit. These things would be valuable secrets, as Ransom says, and that's pretty interesting. So he just lets anything that's not important at it for a time just get lost because it just isn't needed. Unlike us, we write everything down here on Earth. We don't forget anything in some way. We have it written down with permanent records on the internet now, even, and nothing can basically really be lost anymore without a lot of work being put into it. But yes, they've destroyed most of their poetry books, most of their books, and it's actually surprising that the Sorn have any books at all. The students, he doesn't think are students at first, but later sees their pupils. And they get off to ask him questions about Earth. And he says they work systematically from geology to present geography, and then flora, fauna, human history, languages, politics, and arts. And they they asked him questions until he couldn't answer anymore, and then they went to a new subject. And they asked him indirect questions that brought out knowledge. Pretty interesting. They learned about the steam engine. From the steam engine, they learned better knowledge of the air and water, and how they made paper. From botanical questions from the manufacturing of paper. Kind of interesting. Then they also talked about human history, which included war, slavery, and prostitution. This is one of the more interesting areas, I thought, was what they talk about. And basically Augury and the pupils agree that all this has happened because there is no Oyarsa, and every person wants to be a little Oyarsa, which I agree with. Basically, everyone wants to be a god themselves or a king and wants to be in charge of everyone else. And we're all fighting for it, and that leads to the wars we have. But they also keep on saying that there must be some kind of rule, but creatures cannot rule themselves. And he says the order, the hierarchy that of rule. Basically, it goes beasts, Hanau, Elidi, and Meladil. But on Earth, according to them at least, there are no Eldila, and we're all fighting amongst each other to become basically king over everyone here on Earth. I thought that was pretty interesting, but can also be backed up by human history in war, World War I, World War II, for extreme example, for sure, with Hitler basically trying to take over the world, create the Third Reich. Great example for people wanting to rule each other. And there's also another part that having only one kind of human now is animal or spirit, basically Earth, bodily spirit, like humans, Sorns, and such, narrows our sympathies and even our thought, which is pretty interesting. But gotta say, it kind of shows true in at least where C.S. Lewis is writing from, how the Sorn, the Harasa, and the Philophila basically contribute in each a different way to society, where one writes poetry, science, and engineering, which is pretty interesting how they all work together and don't have any wars amongst themselves, basically because they're ruling in this hierarchy that is set out. And I thought that was a pretty interesting scene, and it really makes you think about what's going on Earth and maybe